It's crazy. Jon Stewart still has not accused him of loving. It's weird to me that Jon Stewart has yet to accuse him of writing a book that will create more or something. I don't know. Weird. Now let's get back to a person who is also, but I suspect as a child and not as an adult, Jon Stewart. Now, Jon Stewart is not a convert, but he is Jewish. And let's hear what his interview looked like as opposed to the Tony, whatever that guy's name is, Tony Dukakis. I keep forgetting his last name. Anyway, I don't know why I'm transitioning off the circumcision, but I do have it on my mind. It is hard for me to not see it. Let's continue.
You are grappling. This is a book of grappling.
It is.
It's reparations, the purpose of art, the purpose of writing, your role, your responsibility, the Israel-Palestine. I can see you want to go back to just writing comic books again for 5 years. This is what was in you that you thought, I need to take on these big questions, including, what is this for? What is writing for?
I have, for a long time, had in the back of my head that we do not have a complete understanding of politics. That is to say, we think of politics as what happens inside of a voting booth. You go in and you choose, pull a lever for whatever.
Right.
But there's a whole entire architecture that happens outside of that voting booth that defines what goes on inside of it, what issues are appropriate, frankly, who is human and who is not. And that is the work of stories, movies, television shows, writing, all of that. And being a writer, and this coming out of, me talking to my students at Howard University at the time, I really, really wanted to address that. So often I get the question, why should I write? I write. Not in general, but by the time they get to me, my students are like there. But a lot of, other times when I'm, out in the world, what is writing gonna do? Like, what is it actually gonna change? And what I wanted people to understand is writing actually shapes the world around you entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I would have said basic cable, but okay, right.
But somebody has to write the scripts, right?
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
Do you grapple with that as a burden or a call to arms? What is, for you, how do you wear it?
Oh, it's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it gets me up in the morning.
Right.
It like pumps my blood. Like I can't wait. You know what I mean? Like there are people who, I got a friend who's an ER doc, right? And I was texting this morning about, everything that was going on.
Right.
And he disappeared for a second. He said, sorry, this guy just got shot. I'm sorry. And I said to him, how beautiful is it to have work that actually matters? Like, you're out there saving people's lives. And I'm not an ER doctor, but it is a blessing to feel like what I write actually matters in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? It gives me meaning and purpose. And I kind of wanted to convey that, to all the young writers, who hopefully...
As inspiration.
Yes, it's a beautiful
Your friend
thing.
was at work when the guy got shot, right?
He was, yes, he was. Yeah, he was.
Because for a second I was like, wait, he was at work, right?
Yeah, he was at work.
It wasn't like you were talking to me. He was
no,
like...
No, he was at work. Yeah.
All right, that's very good. Yeah. Do you get frustrated, and this is something that I think about sometimes, that the world that you would prefer to see, that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice and the work of writing is trying to help facilitate that it is that arc of moral justice is so resilient against bending, that it's so hard to matter in that form?
I get sad.
Right.
And there are a lot of moments in here where I was really sad.
Right.
But at the same time, like I said, it fills me with purpose. I don't know if I would have that purpose I talked about just a few minutes ago, without that great difficulty. Honestly, it feels great to know that if I actually try really, really hard at the thing, if I actually work really, really hard to write the best book I possibly can, that I could be here talking to you. That it actually really
you could have written a book and been on here. Listen, if that's the case, I can tell you, you didn't have to work.
Come on, man. I feel like this
nearly this hard.
This is too much glaze, bro. Talk about the cool stuff.
But it is. It's a beautifully felt book. I want to ask.
Holy cow, long-time watcher, first-time commenter. Why verified accounts only? What do you mean? Anyway, listen. Ta-Nehisi wrote about his change in attitude towards the recognition of Palestinians as human beings. Okay, And most of the media was like shocked by it almost, because they're like, you're one of us, like you're in the halls of intelligentsia, you're not supposed to say it like that. And that's pretty much it. And his categorization from one of the chosen ones to someone who is going to quickly fall out of favor has absolutely been noticeable, right? Inside of like the liberal media ecosystem, you do still have people who are extremely critical of Israel that get, you know, some space allotted to them every now and then. But overall, someone like Ta-Nehisi Coates doing that is actually unique, because he goes from like being at the tippy top of liberal intelligentsia to being deranked. There are not a lot of people who have gotten to that level. Like, this is Barack Obama's favorite writer. You know what I mean? This is Barack Obama's favorite author being like, yo, Israel's doing it. I saw it with my own damn eyes. Like, this is unacceptable.
There's a certain aspect of your career that has really tried to...
It's not even clear why libs propped him up in the first place. His OG work is just as controversial as his Palestine take. I mean, I think he's still a liberal. That's why he has like he has an idealistic notion of how things work for the most part. Also, talking about reparations and making a case for reparations is very different than like directly, especially in the United States of America, where like that seems so far out of reach, as opposed to like directly criticizing our ongoing with a regime is a little different.
To reconcile not with things in the present, but their vestiges, the structures, racial politics, right, slavery, economic injustices, where it might not be the active virus, but it's these vestiges of it that still, you know, lead.
For the record, Jon Stewart gets to obviously criticize Israel, but I mean, he is a comedian.
Into the groundwater, right, and make it toxic and polluted. This book felt a little different in that you were also going into the present,
yeah, and
bringing those lessons, yeah, with you. And I thought that was a really moving part of the book.
Yeah, that's true, and I guess I'm going to be the one to broach this, but it was obviously most active when I was in Jerusalem, when I was in Haifa, when I was on the West Bank.
Right.
I mean, it was the history, but the history was active.
Right.
And that was tough. That was tough. I'm used to, you know, going to some, yes, you know, slave plantation and saying, well, yeah, this did happen 150 years ago, but here's how, you know, you can still feel the impact. And you go, no, it's right now.
Right.
It's right now.
And it comes on the heels of, so in the book, you take a trip to Senegal.
I do, yes.
Is that in relation to your trip to Israel and the West Bank in that same time frame, or was that split up?
So I think I went in, this would have been like September of 2022 to Senegal, and then May of 23 to the West Bank and to Israel. And weirdly enough, they are in conversation with each other. I can't say I intended that.
Right. Well, that's why I was curious.
Yeah.
Fine, he went against the grain in his case, but liberals shouldn't get a medal for doing the bare minimum of recognizing the humanity of other people. I'm sorry, dog, but you coming to the conclusion that what Israel is doing is unconscionable is not the same as him doing that with his platform. The amount of social and political capital that he is basically expending in an effort to utilize his cherished platform, okay, and broad recognition and celebration from liberal intelligentsia to say something like this is brave and should be celebrated, especially when you've literally written an article celebrating Israel and then recognizing the errors in what you have done. Okay, stop stepping on chatters. No, this should be encouraged. It should be celebrated. I will absolutely welcome any and every liberal or any commentator, no matter what their background is, as long as they arrive at this conclusion in an earnest manner and advocate for what is right. That's it. My mom visited Al-Aqsa Mosque in 2022 and is really weird listening to her experience with the checkpoints and hours of waiting and investigations and all that compared to these media clowns who visit, or even random Jewish people who visit Israel and don't have to go through any of that. Mind you, my mom isn't even Palestinian, so I can't even imagine the Palestinian experience. Dude, what matters is when you see it, and how you are moved from that experience. Because there's nothing in it for him to come out. Okay, there's nothing in it for him to come out and defend Palestinian. There's actually more in it for him to go there, see the with his eyes, and then whitewash it. Okay, I don't know why chatter. Yeah, that guy's actually gatekeeping being morally correct. Yeah, please, guys, stop being so cynical. Okay, the entire purpose of what I do on this broadcast is so that I can change people's minds. Okay, I will never cast someone aside for having a genuine change of heart. Okay, it's so strange to me, and I think that this is something that you guys really, if this is an opinion that you hold, you really should not have this opinion any longer. Okay, you shouldn't. It is a very important fundamental that I apply to every aspect of my life. Okay, and it is at the heart of my understanding of rehabilitation over incarceration. It is at my it is in my commentary whenever I talk about cancel culture. It is very important to me, and it should be important to you as well. If you're a real leftist, if you're a real progressive, you have to give people space to learn and grow. Okay, it's very, very important, and it's also very productive. It's at the heart of building a large and successful movement. Okay, it is how you organize. Yeah, but when chatter should have changed your mind, you fight them. Good argument that you just made there. Thank you. Exactly. I do. I like that. Isn't part of our goals of the collective action is to make sure as many people as possible change their minds? This is an extraordinary, and then immediately starts making arguments against it. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary when someone changes their mind. Okay. And I will celebrate that, especially because it's not very common. Okay. Stop it. Stop being like this. Okay. Especially because so many of you also went through this journey on your own. Okay. You quietly went through this journey. I went through this journey. We all did. Okay. What the, like, that's crazy, man. Half of this community did not agree with most of the things that I advocate for before they encountered this community and became productive members of this community. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and debate about this. All right. No one is born a Marxist Leninist child. And if you are, then that probably means you're sheltered. Anyway, let's continue.
Because there is a music there between the two.
Yeah. No, there is. I mean, Senegal is very much about me, frankly, investigating the very stories that gave me my name, you know, and gave me my identity. And trying to work through that, and frankly, not completely working through it by the time I got over there. And then, you know, I take this trip, you know, with this wonderful organization, a Palestine Festival of Literature, and I get over there, you know, for 5 days, and I spend another 5 days with these ex-IDF guys, you know what I mean, who had their own political evolution. And this is very weird to say, but as much sympathy as I had for...
It's crazy. Jon Stewart still has not accused him of loving... It's weird to me that Jon Stewart has yet to accuse him of writing a book that will create more or something. I don't know. Weird.
For the Palestinians, watching Zionism in the world, even feeling like this is wrong, I was like, my God, I know how you get here. I know how it happens. And I don't mean like I approve of it, but I mean like I see how it happens. I totally see how it happens.
Is how you see how it happens, because you talk about Yad Vashem and going there and being moved, is the idea, because you have a line in the book that I think is one of the most powerful, which is, and I want to make sure that I get it right, which is, your oppression will not save you.
Yeah.
I was raised with full Zionist indoctrination camp, and even after seeing the West Bank, it was hard to shake so much of the ingrained trust I was brainwashed with. Chatters don't understand what it's like unless you go through it. It takes balls for Coast to come out like this. I mean, yeah, but he's also a black man in America. I think that I don't think he went through the same process that you did. You know what I mean? Unless you're like an evangelical or some like in growing up in the church, like many non-Jewish people don't go through that same level of indoctrination. For them, it's more so like the only information they have is like severely limited. And that is by design, of course. There isn't like extra justifications. No, I know. I got that. I got that, chatter. I'm saying it's different for you and your journey as opposed to Ta-Nehisi Coates is what I was saying. Like, it makes more sense for you to have gone through this upbringing and have like these hangups. It's not. I think it's like truly interesting that so many Americans are so careless and so indifferent to the cruelty that they also arrive at similar points of view. You know what I mean? It blows my mind. But then again, I never had to go through that because I'm Turkish. You know, my interpretation of Israel has, as long as I've known myself at least, has always been like, oh, that's a country that like America is leading. That's a country that is doing a lot of death and destruction in the region as a direct imperial vestige. Like, not with those terms, but pretty much that is like the way a lot of people from this area interpret Israel's existence as, for understandable reasons that many of you have become more aware of since October 7. Right? I suspect a lot of non-Israeli Jews have become anti-Zionist over the past year, but there's a lot of pressure from the community to stuff it away because we have a tribal mentality where we're very scared of it. I often wonder if I'm a self-hating Jew. You are not a self-hating Jew. Do not ever let anybody tell you that. That is ridiculous. I mean, look, I'm not Jewish, obviously, but having said that, your perspective as a Jew is closer to Jewish culture, Jewish tradition, and Jewish history than Zionist Jews are. Straight up. It doesn't matter what the indoctrination says. It doesn't matter what so many in your community will tell you. You literally are closer to Jewish tradition and Jewish history. And there are obviously millions of Jews out there as well that you can look to for pointers on this. It's crazy. HasanAbi was a 3-year-old Twitter moms talk about? No, dog. I'm just from a Muslim country. What are you talking about? Like, that's why I said I didn't use that language. But like, yeah, if you're from there, if you're from around there, your interpretation of Israel is very different. This is something that a lot of Americans don't understand. Like, you know how when we look at like Chinese internet and we're like shocked at the way that Chinese netizens operate and the cultural norms that they have or the way they communicate or the opinions that they take for granted. That's what it means when you grow up outside of the sphere of Western influence. Okay. And it's still very different than like, obviously my upbringing, but yeah, that's just what it is social conditioning. I'm saying that I didn't have to like work super hard to arrive at these conclusions. I was basically born into an environment with these conclusions to begin with. Having said that, of course, I did a lot of reading to truly comprehend the scope and the nature of this conflict and the inhumanity. But, you know, culturally speaking, my understanding was, or my posture against American imperialism was always, what is this? You're so dumb. Yes. Do you think she will be trustworthy? I'm Jewish and I love Israel. Not a bigot here for open discourse. A cap on how much you make? LLL. Sorry, Hasan. You made too much money. Time to give it away. Let's unban this guy. It's also costly to go against others in your in-group. It's not easy. I know. That was like the most common thing I saw with Jewish HasanAbi heads at the pro-Palestinian encampment is that like there is definitely a lot of like freezing out those people from all of the aspects of community that you normally engage with. It is like a normal part of your existence, you know? You get ostracized. Michael Brooks said, my Jewish tradition opposes apartheid. Pretty simple. Yeah. Apologize to me. You were honestly seeming pretty lived up a few months ago, but now all I can do is glaze you. I don't know if it's just my perspective, but some things happen to make you double down, sticking to your guns. Apologize to me because what? No, I'm not going to do that. Our Mouse debuted her newest VTuber model for you. Okay, dude.
Who looks at Hasan mode? Look.
Okay, dude.
Yeah.
No!
I'm a VTuber. You got a fucking problem with that?
Chat, how do I download funny emotes on Twitch mobile? Boomer ass. Born in 1993 ass. Anyway. Please unlock has lasted 30 minutes, big man. What do you mean? We're just having some fun before the debate starts, okay? Calm down. Calm down. Please answer the question. I don't know either. you're not going to be able to see it on your regular Twitch chat if you're mobile, okay? You can't. You're going to need to use a separate application for it. You're the boomer, there's a way multiple. You got to get a separate app to view the chat with. I have to imagine the emotes on mobile. Yeah, you don't have to imagine them because I literally show chat. So you can see all the emotes if you look at the screen. Anyway, all right, let's finish the Jon Stewart video.
Which is, and you write about that in relation to the black experience in America, but also about the Jewish experience in the Holocaust, as well as in Israel. And what did you mean by that?
I think we would like to think that you go through, a horrific experience, be it the Middle Passage, Jim Crow here, be it the Holocaust or the centuries before that of pogroms, oppression, etc. And somehow you will be morally improved by coming out of that. You might be. You might be. But it's just as likely that you will conclude that, in fact, the world is a cold, hard place and it's a zero-sum game. You know what I mean? And what matters is who has the guns and who doesn't.
Right.
I stand opposed to that, just on principle, period. You know what I mean? But I get how people take that lesson.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think it's discomforting for us to feel, because we feel sympathy for people. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I'm walking through Yad Vashem and I'm feeling it on a very, very deep level, only to come back here and realize I was, about a mile away from a massacre of a Palestinian village. That's hard to take.
Hey, it's,
you know what I mean?
Listen, I'm raised in, obviously, cultural Jewish tradition, and I imagine, if you were to feel like the name of your people did some things that you found objectionable, it hits you different.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. And it's not a complete parallel, but that's why in that chapter I wanted to talk a little bit about Liberia, for instance. You know what I mean? And just the idea. I get it, the appeal of, hey, we're going to have a state of our own. We're going to get away from these people that did, X, Y, and Z for us. We will have safety there. And yet then you find yourself enacting, systems that, if not are the same or similar, are at least, morally deeply problematic.
Right. And having to justify them through either threat or the situation or you don't understand.
Yeah.
And what I'm wondering is that the story in a condensed form of all of us? Does for society to progress, does there also have to be exploitation? Do you grapple with this idea that when we think about anything, whether it's the American story or the Israeli story or any of those, it's stories of empire, whether it was the Ottoman Empire or the Caliphate, it's groups of people.
Yo, hey, chill. John, you're about to get on my bad side. Hey, yo, you're about to get on my bad side, dog. Yo!
Living under the
why you say me for, bro? What the hell?
Grace of a leader who controls their lives. And can we progress outside of that? Do you think about, is there another way to do this? Has there been another way to do this?
Yeah.
If we shine that light on any country that grew through, won't there be a story of exploitation and mistreatment that we find? Maybe not as horrific, but we find it.
Yeah, I think, though, we have to guard against the temptation to accept that history is necessarily the limit of who we are as human beings. That just because, that's been, that it's been that way, that it necessarily has to be that way. I will, for instance, highlight, the underlying role of nationalism and the belief that a nation state is the way to secure and safeguard a minority. That is a very recent development as a belief system, actually.
Right.
That is not eternal. That's not.
But prior to that, wouldn't it have been tribalism, or wouldn't it have been something?
It would have been a king.
Collection of,
it would have been a pope. It would have been, my allegiances, X, Y, and Z. But what I'm saying is, it is not innate in us to say, I am of this ethnicity. We should all have a state together. And perhaps more importantly, we should deny rights to people who are not of that ethnicity.
Right.
We don't have to be that way. We don't have to be that way.
A man from your lips to God's ears, I always wonder, there was that, I can't remember the experiment, but it was they assigned a class where people with brown hair got
he's already gone.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, the people with blonde hair were like, and they got sad. And then the people with brown hair started to kind of abuse the people with blonde hair. Yeah. And there's a part of me that thinks, boy, we could solve religious differences, and somehow we would go back to each other over something else equally as arbitrary. And that, I'm wondering how you get that zero-sum game element that you witnessed up front out of it. Because I'd like to believe it's not malevolence, but ignorance and fear.
I think it's a lot of fear. And frankly, I think it's a lot of anger.
Right.
I think, and obviously, for obvious reasons, you would know this better than me, but I sense that a lot of it is the humiliation of the Holocaust. I think that is, very, very much present.
Right.
And not feeling like I will never be in that position again.
Sure.
Well,
that is at least everything I've read from Jewish scholars that interpret Zionism. He's 100% on the money. Like he's right. It's a really good way to interpret it.
Well, never again.
Right.
I think the thing that so many Jewish people, and not everybody, look, it's not a monolith either. Jewish religion, Jewish culture is certainly not a monolith, and there's many different opinions. I think if we start from a baseline of, I would like a safe and secure Israel and a safe and secure Palestine, and that's my starting point to any argument, and then we're just talking strategy. But I think the idea of never again, you try to internalize it not just as a self-defense kind of dictum. You hope to think of that as never again for anyone.
Right.
And that's the part that feels the worst. When you look at it in that way.
Can you explain how it's possible for Harris Biden supporters are okay and opposed with what's happening in Israel? It's so backwards to me. I see some completely okay with everything, but some against. But both parties are in support of Harris Biden. Yeah, it's easy. American foreign policy is brutal and seemingly unchanging. So we as a society have deliberately kind of put that on the back burner. We never think about it. It's just a thing that happens. Also, people are selfish and don't really care. People are so selfish they don't even care about like their neighbors. They certainly don't care about a group of scary, barbaric animals that they've seen on TV constantly calling for the death and destruction of the United States of America, that they have been conditioned into believing is an enemy of theirs.
And I'm curious how you feel, so in Africa, I'm curious about what you think about this idea of diaspora. When people are in diasporas and it carries this weight of you are lost. You are not in a place where you can, I don't think Italian people who live in America think of themselves as, I'm in a diaspora. They think of themselves as like, I'll take a tour, maybe when I'm old, But Jewish people, black people, there's this feeling of somehow we're not safe. And I feel like that's a dangerous thing to think.
Does it not come from being degraded and being made to feel like you are outside of the place that maybe you would like to call home? There's this great
that's interesting
book, the Pity of It All, and it's about Jews in Germany.
Are you going to make me read something else?
No, it's going to be quick. I promise to be quick about this.
I'm still just getting through Breaking Bad. I can't even...
But it's all of these, Jews all these German Jews who want to be German, right? Like they really, really want to believe in Germany.
Right.
And they get the Holocaust.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that has to assault your sense of, the idea that you can somehow be safe out of
And then how much then does humiliation play a part in all of it, including kind of what has been what we would consider the modern age version of exploitation and colonialism? Like even when we think about the regions that you went into were kind of a post World War I mandate that was drawn, Lebanese, Syrian, Palestine mandate. The French are going to take this, the English are going to take that. I mean, it's pawns on a board that people are moving around. And does that humiliate a region to the point where if we don't address that, we can't get through it?
Yeah, I think so. Right. I mean, I will say that one of the hard things about that, and getting a little too psychological about this, is I spent 10 days there.
So you know it all.
Exactly. One of the tough things was, I have to tell you, the perspective of Palestinians and the extent to which their perspective has been pushed so far out of the frame was incredible. I felt like I was seeing a new world.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's like shameful for me to admit. I'm not bragging about that. You know, it's not because that world wasn't there, or that world doesn't, you know, hasn't been trying to present itself. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I just wonder how many of these conversations would be improved if our media organizations made a concerted effort, whenever they talk about this topic, to ask, do we have anybody Palestinian that we've invited to
allow it on the Democratic Convention floor?
I
think access to different stories has always been a difficulty for America in general because of that sort of solipsistic worldview. You know, we tend to be slightly narcissistic.
I find it really hard to accept Israelis doing it because they never want to go through it again. No. That's not what anybody here is saying. They're saying that the like at its very core, Zionism has built that understanding into its very foundation, that like never again to us it you know, unimaginable atrocities have occurred. It's not a real justification. It's a false justification. It's propaganda. That's what it is. And that's precisely the reason why there's so many, dude, there are so many academics, dude. There are so many goddamn scholars specifically that cover the Holocaust, specifically that are Jewish themselves, that also say the exact same things that I am saying. Okay? It's like, you cannot be that close and make it your lives work and then not recognize right from wrong. Okay? That's it. Do you think Zionism is a reactionary movement? Yes, of course. It is an ethno-nationalistic fascist movement built around supremacy of one group. Yeah, of course it is a reactionary movement. Abso-fucking-lutely. What's more interesting is that given the historical background that it was built on top of, and it has been able to, I guess, infiltrate as though it is a progressive ideology. Like, it's kind of wild on that front, especially because it's also attached in a defensive posture against like real bigotry. Anti-Semitism is a real bigotry.
When it comes to the vision of it, and it's such a necessary thing. I wonder if it really improves it. I mean, here's something that I grapple with. I've known about it forever. I have friends who have Palestinian families who've suffered through it. I have friends in Israel who suffered through it. And it sometimes feels as though the only people that benefit are the powers that be. And all these good people are so left behind by weird power structure that we left in place there.
Yeah.
And you bring up an interesting point, which is a path forward of reconciling humiliation. And I don't know, what is the mechanism of that? Is there one? And is it that sort of, you know, you think about South Africa and Truth and Reconciliation, but is there a mechanism to heal that for people? Or is it purely self-determination and that's...
You know, I don't know.
Well, that's all the time we have. I don't know.
I don't know.
But it is, I wonder, because you bring up such an interesting, it is such a powerful river of emotion.
I think Ta-Nehisi Coates is more of an overt anti-Zionist than Jon Stewart is, I would say. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. It's besides the point.
And when you say, I can almost not cry talking about it.
Jon Stewart, however, historically is one of the most like mainstream figures that has been very critical of Israel, like significantly more critical of Israel than most other mainstream figures. So he stands alone in that perspective for sure.
Because it's so deeply gets at the heart of our humanity. Like, people just want to be seen and just want to be.
No, and it's palpable. I could feel it. You know, I could really feel it. One thing I would suggest is, and we have actually had to struggle with this as African Americans, and I'll tell you this from the black perspective. There is great, not always spoken shame in the black community over the kind of physical traumas we've endured. You have to understand, man, every single one of us, every single African American is a child of sexual, all of us.
Right.
All of us. There is not a single pure African American who came through asleep. There is an amount of humiliation in that. There is an amount of humiliation in watching, and I've written about this, films from the 60s and watching these kids and these children, get beaten by the cops. There is humiliation in, watching today, you know what I mean? George Floyd, a knee on his neck. And I do think, a significant part of it is understanding, particularly with the past, these people didn't want to be enslaved. Right. You know what I mean? These people didn't want to get beat. And it's not true that these people did nothing. It's not true that these people just willingly, went to it. There was a slogan out for a while that a lot of us shouted down, "We are not our ancestors," as if to say we somehow are more, resilient and resilient.
Can you break down the sexual claim there? What do you mean, brother? What do you think a chattel slavery breeding program looks like? Black people were not bred, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm using this terminology, but like black people were, every black person under chattel slavery that had sex with a white person was raped. That's it. They were slaves. It's not a claim. It's just a objective reality. This dude is sick. Can you get him on stream? I'd love to get Ta-Nehisi Coates on stream. Meant explain assertion, not a claim. Thank you.
Resistant, you know what I mean? We're not going to be punked and chumped. Yes, we would have. If we had been them, the same thing would have happened. We're no better. We're no braver,
There's such an analog with that, with the Jewish community. And there is, and you hear it a lot about, the first thing Hitler did is he disarmed the Jews. And you're like, the Jews were not like gun-toting. Like, it wasn't, like, if you were taking a, maybe that would have been something like, oh, they disarmed the Jews, and that's how Hitler was able to get the Jews to do that.
That literally is like a reactionary framework, by the way. It's also ahistorical and unironically is like a Zionist framework. The idea that like Jews were disarmed, like they were not strong enough to fight back. Like that's what the other side of that conversation looks like. And it's, one, historically incorrect. There were definitely some gun-toting on the Jewish side, both on the Allied forces front, specifically inside of the Red Army, but also beyond that in the American front, and also beyond that, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and many other forms of Jewish resistance. No, I'm not talking about Stern and Irgun, dude. I'm talking about like the good fight, okay? Not the bad fight. Anyway.
And you're like, oh, you know who had guns and didn't do too well with Hitler? France.
Right.
But you're right. There's that sense of like, how could you let your people, how could you allow that to happen? Yeah. And it does skew their perspectives. And I can already see your next book. Where you fix it all. It's really, it's an amazing piece. And the main thing is,
this conversation wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't hostile or contentious, but there's more.
And listen, man, like, let's not kid ourselves. Once you delve into Israel Palestine, you're going to take a ton of, I don't know where it'll come from everywhere. And I hope you don't wear it personally, but you've done the most important thing.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yes, please.
It will not measure up to the burdens of what I saw Palestinians on the West Bank bearing. It's not even
that's an excellent point. The only point I was going to make is, through your discomfort, albeit not the same discomfort, you've done the most important thing, which is try to advance and delve into an understanding of a complexity that we haven't figured out in 10,000 years. And so I applaud that. And your writing, as always, is so beautiful and moving. So thank you so much for being here. The message, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
You making a bingo card? No. It's the bot.